everybody. Welcome to episode 219 of the Rock Show. I'm Rocker Mike. We got Rob Rossi here as usual. How you doing, Rob?
How you doing, people? Pretty good.
Okay, and man, 219 episodes, man. We're
Yeah.
just been along all these years. We're going to talk about a guy today that we were talking before the show. We're surprised we didn't cover this guy.
Yeah, Nick Cave, man, like the Australian singer. I can't believe all the shows we did. It took 219 shows.
I know. Well, it's good we're still finding people to talk about. We've done so many shows, but Nick Cave is a very interesting guy. He's an Australian singer, songwriter, artist, known mostly for his band, The Bad Seeds, also another band earlier called The Birthday Party. He's known for his collaborations with people and very interesting guy. I'll be honest with you, for a long time, I was kind of lukewarm to Nick Cave for many years. I kind of viewed him as like a goth guy, but he's really like not. No. I guess about 10 years ago, I kind of started getting into him a little bit more and realizing that the guy is just an amazing songwriter and his lyrics and what he's all about. And he's had a, fantastic career, interesting personal life. He's battled drugs and addictions, and he's also collaborated with people. He was in a relationship with PJ Harvey for a while back in the 90s. Very interesting stuff that he's done. There he is right there. Okay. Yeah. And so this will be a pretty in-depth show, I think, Rob. I got a lot of information. And I guess we'll just start. How's that?
He just played the Barclays Center.
He did. I know Clown went. Scott the Clown.
Oh, yeah, Clown. A few people went and they say that he sounded great, man.
Yeah. Well, he's got a good voice, and he always has a good band behind him. I saw him once years ago. Kind of went because I was going out with a girl that was into him, and I just wasn't so much at the time. But I should go see him again because I remember kind of like enjoying it, even though I didn't know a lot of the music at the time. This is like 25 years ago. But anyway, so he was born in Australia in the state of Victoria, September 22nd, 1957, as Nicholas Edward Cave. Now, he has two older brothers, Tim and Peter, and a younger sister named Julie. And as a child, he lived in kind of a rural area of Victoria called Wangaratta. Now, his father taught English and mathematics at a local school, and his mother was a librarian at the high school that he would attend. So from an early age, Cave's father read him literary classics, stuff like Crime and Punishment and Lolita. He also organized the very first symposium on the Australian outlaw Ned Kelly. Ned Kelly was a character from Australia that was kind of like an outlaw in the I think it was the late 1800s. He was like of Irish descent. You ever see the movie Ned Kelly with Mick Jagger playing him?
No.
Oh, that's a good movie. Mick Jagger doing an Irish accent. It's pretty funny. But Cave was very into Ned Kelly as a kid, so it had, his father arranged that pretty much for him. Now, through his older brother, he got interested in progressive rock bands out of Britain, stuff like Pink Floyd, Jethro Tull, King Crimson, and a girlfriend of his as a kid got him into Leonard Cohen, who was a Canadian folk artist, singer-songwriter, passed away a few years ago. He's considered by many to be one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And Nick says he is the greatest songwriter of all time. He actually said that. So when Nick was 9, he realized he had a pretty good voice, and he joined the choir at the Holy Trinity Cathedral in that town. Yeah. And at 13, he was actually expelled from Wangaratta High School and then sent by his parents to Melbourne to go to a boarding school there. Okay. His family moved to Melbourne. I don't know why he was expelled. I don't have a reason for that. I'd like to find that out. At 13, I'm sure he was up to no good. But his family moved to Melbourne the following year and settled in a small suburb nearby called Murrumbina. Now, after his secondary level of schooling, Cave studied painting, Okay, and in 1976, but he dropped out the following year to pursue music. And at this time, he was introduced to a very bad drug called heroin.
Ooh.
Okay, and he left art school around that time. Now, Cave attended his first music concert at Melbourne's Festival Hall. The bill consisted of the English rock bands Manfred Mann, Deep Purple, and Free. Nick Cave remembers, and the quote here is, "I remember sitting there and feeling physically the sound going through me. In early 1977, he saw the Australian punk rock bands The Saints and Radio Birdman in Australia for the first time. And Cave was particularly inspired by the show of The Saints. He was very, very influenced by them. And he said he left that show a different person. Now, Cave was 19.
Wow.
Yeah, he was changed after seeing The Saints. We did shows on The Saints and Radio Birdman. Great, two great bands. Now, when he was 19, sadly, Nick's father was killed in a car accident. And his mother told him of his father's death while she was actually bailing him out of a St. Kilda police station where he was being held on a charge of burglary.
Oh, shit.
Okay, so she was bailing Nick out, and she tells him that his father was killed in an accident. He went on to say that his father died at a point in his life when he was most confused, and that loss of his father created a vacuum in his life, and then a space in which my words began to float and collect and find their purpose. So I think what he did was he used, like all good artists do, they use the pain that they experience and they can transform it into something creative. I think that's what he means by that. The early years of his music career would start in 73, actually, when he founded a band with fellow students at the Caulfield Grammar School. It was Nick Cave as lead singer. The band included Mick Harvey on guitar, Phil Calvert on drums, John Cochavera on guitar, Brett Purcell on bass, and Chris Coyne on saxophone.
Was that the birthday party?
Not quite. We're almost there. Okay. Now, this repertoire consisted of cover versions of songs by Lou Reed, David Bowie, Alice Cooper, Roxy Music, among others. And later, that lineup would slim down to 4 members, including Cave's friend Tracy Pugh on bass guitar. In 77, after leaving school, they adopted the name The Boys Next Door and began playing predominantly original punk rock material. Guitarist, songwriter, and ex-Young Charlatans member Roland S. Howard joined that band in 1978. These are all like the Charlatans were Australian. They like Australia had that whole separate punk scene. We've talked about that in the past. Now, the band The Boys Next Door emerged as an important part of the Melbourne post-punk scene in the late 70s, securing a residency at St. Kilda's Crystal Ballroom, where they attracted a big cult following. They played hundreds of live shows in Australia and toured interstate before changing their name to The Birthday Party.
So that's what happened. They were The Boys Next Door, and then they...
Right, they kind of evolved into The Birthday Party. And then they moved to London in 1980, Cave's girlfriend, Anita Lane, accompanied the band. They struggled initially with money and finances and limited knowledge of London and connections. And they kind of grew to detest the city, actually, and much of its music scene, which Cave later described as dead. They felt kind of robbed and ripped off that they went there. You got to remember, 1980, punk kind of fizzled out. You had that kind of new wave-ish period where it was kind of like goofy, and there were some good bands, but it wasn't what it was 3 years earlier. I think they were kind of expecting that.
Mike, this is where he started with was Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Not yet. We're still talking about The Birthday Party. The Bad Seeds aren't formed yet.
I thought in London they formed.
I believe they do, but it kind of fizzles out, The Birthday Party. But we'll get into that. Okay. By the end of their first year, 1981 in London, The Birthday Party had gained a lot of notoriety for their aggressive confrontational live shows and Cave's pretty much unhinged stage presence, which had him shrieking, yelling, throwing himself about the stage, backed up by harsh pounding rock music laced with guitar feedback. A lot of feedback in The Birthday Party. they would draw on a lot of the lyrics kind of drew on Old Testament imagery, and Cave's lyrics frequently revolved around sin, debauchery, and damnation.
Yeah.
I mean, he was very kind of apocalyptic in his writing. The band found a champion in prominent radio DJ and tastemaker. Guess who? John Peel.
John Peel, the guy that discovered everybody.
Yep. And they went on to record. What?
He's probably one of the names that we named the most. Probably name him like in every other show. John Peel's come up. It's just
yeah. Especially when it comes to the British bands or European stuff. You know, some of the American acts too, but mostly the English stuff. And the guy was so important. I'm glad we did that show on him.
Yeah.
Well, as the birthday party, they went on to record 4 different Peel sessions, which is pretty good. Not everybody got to do 4. Cave's sense of humor and penchant for parody is evident in many of the band's songs, including a song called Nick the Stripper and King Inc., a great song called Release the Bats. Okay, and that was one of the band's most famous songs and John Peel's single of the year in 1981. And it basically was kind of like, it was Gothic rock in a way, but it was like kind of making fun of it at the same time. They didn't really, a lot of people, the critics didn't know what to make of the birthday party, if they were serious or not.
Yeah.
They were very influential in this kind of like goth thing that was starting at the time. Now, the birthday party would then relocate to West Berlin in 1982 after establishing a cult following in Europe, Australia, and the United States. They would disband in 1983. I have to add, West Berlin in 1982 was the worst place to be if you were into heroin, because it was.
They were probably
it was coming out. It was coming out of the faucets, man. It was like, you know what I'm saying? It was everywhere. That's where a few years earlier, Bowie and Iggy Pop were there in like 70, 76, 77, all that. It was all based around the ability to get heroin. It's a shame, but it's true.
Wow.
So, 1984, the band with Cave as their lead vocalist had released 18. Okay. The Nick Cave, between 1984 and the present time, has released 18 studio albums with the Bad Seeds.
Bad Seeds, yeah.
Right. And basically, Pitchfork music websites, web magazine, calls the group one of rock's most enduring, redoubtable bands with an accomplished discography. Though their sound tends to change considerably from one to the other, album to the other, the one constant of the band is an unpolished blending of disparate genres and song structures, which provide a vehicle for Cave's virtuosic, frequent histrionics. Basically, the Bad Seeds was put together so Nick could kind of like explore his obsessions with religion, death, love,
and everything else,
violence, strange things, bizarre things. Okay, but he also combined this with a love of America in the sense of like the blues, okay, gospel, even, okay, rock music, and kind of like arty post-punk kind of stuff. It's really a blend of amazing shit. Okay, now, you know, for the sake of time, I won't go into like every Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds album. Okay, we'll kind of just keep moving and go back to things.
Mike, let me ask you a question. What was the difference between the birthday party, and Bad Seeds?
Well, it was really, the Bad Seeds was more of a vehicle just for Nick. The birthday party was more of a band.
A band, all right. So that was the big
difference. And the sound was more consistent in the birthday party, like one genre.
Oh yeah.
The Bad Seeds, like I just said, you know, they floated from different genres. The thing that kind of holds it all together, I think, is the songwriting, the lyrics. You know, you're gonna hear violent lyrics. You're gonna hear, you know, interesting, just poetic kind of stuff. I don't know how to describe it.
Have you noticed his movies are getting put into more TV shows and movies now? All his songs.
Yeah. I mean, like Red Right Hand with Peaky Blinders and other things. Well, you know what it is? Music. A lot of good music has floated into TV shows in the last decade because people like our generation are writing the shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're putting those songs in there where in the past they wouldn't, nobody was listening to that,
Yeah, nobody would care. But now
nobody
they
wouldn't take a chance on somebody like him. We don't care. We'll ask to have that in there, So in September of 2013, Nick Cave explained that he returned to using a typewriter for songwriting. Okay. It was something that his songwriting used to type it out. Okay. A lot of people don't do that. All right. They might write it down, but he used to type it out. But then for years he got away from it and he started getting back into it again after they recorded their 12th album called Nocturama in 2003. And basically he also did it because he was writing on a computer before going back to the typewriter, and he would find sometimes things would get deleted and he would lose shit. So he just wanted to have a hard copy of everything like the old days,
So that makes sense, because you have it. Like you could put a file up and then look for it. That shit's gone, man.
Right. Exactly. Like I said, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into a lot with all these Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I'm sure if anybody's watching, they're definitely into it and they know the songs. One song that always stands out to me is the Mercy Seat. Okay, and the Mercy Seat was a song that he wrote about a prisoner about to get the electric chair. And this is the kind of shit he wrote about,
Yeah.
And one person the original version by him and the Bad Seeds is fantastic, but the one person that did a cover of it, who did a fantastic cover that you wouldn't think would even know the song, was Johnny Cash.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he did one of the albums that was produced by Rick Rubin, in the 90s. Yeah. When he was doing that acoustic stuff like heavy, So I always, that's a song that always stuck with me. The Mercy Seat. I mean, the lyrics in that are so descriptive. He's talking about being in prison. It's so miserable. There's a giant bone sticking out of his soup. Okay. And, he's about to sit in the mercy seat and he's saying, I'm guilty for what I did, but I'm not guilty. It's like the lyrics are like, intense. Yeah. Okay. So at one point between 2006 and 2010, Nick took a little bit of a break from the Bad Seeds and he started a band called Grinder Man.
Yeah, Grinder Man. That was a side project.
Yeah, it was a side project with someone named Warren Ellis, who played guitar, mandolin, violin, backing vocals. Martin Casey on bass guitar and backing vocals, and Jim Sklevunos on drums, percussion, and backing vocals. Now, I just saw Jim Sklevunos recently playing with the Pogues. He was on drums for them. He also played with the Cramps. He's an amazing drummer. This alternative rock outfit was formed as a way to escape the weight of the Bad Seeds on him.
Yeah.
The band's name was inspired by a Memphis Slim song called Grinder Man Blues, which Cave is noted to have started singing during one of the band's early rehearsal sessions. The band's debut studio album, called Grinder Man, was released in 2007 to positive reviews, and the band's second and last studio album was called Grinder Man 2, and that was released in 2010 to very similar reception. Grinder Man's first public performance was at All Tomorrow's Parties in April of 2007, where Bobby Gillespie from Primal Scream accompanied the band on backing vocals and percussion. In December of 2011, after performing at the Meredith Music Festival, Cave announced that Grinderman was done and the band was over. And 2 years later, Grinderman performed both weekends at the 2013 Coachella Festival, as did Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. So he actually brought them back briefly and then had two bands play the Coachella. Pretty good.
They had the pussy. They had the song "No Pussy Blues."
Yeah. No Pussy Blues.
Like, but that was like a totally different genre from the Bad Seed. Like it was almost like a garage band rock.
It was.
Sound. It was crazy.
It was. I like the stuff I've heard from it. I haven't heard everything from Grinder Man, But I've heard like bits and pieces of both albums, and
It's good shit.
It is good shit. It is good shit. Too bad he didn't keep that going.
Yeah.
Well, like you mentioned, his stuff's been in film and TV. His music was featured in the 1986 film Dogs in Space by Richard Lowenstein, and he performed parts of the old song by Boys Next Door prior to the birthday party, Boys Next Door, a song called Shivers, twice in that film. Okay. And another early fan of Nick Cave's was German director Wim Wenders, who lists Cave as among Lou Reed as his favorites. The 1987 film Wings of Desire features the song The Carney and the song From Her to Eternity, not from here, From Her to Eternity. Excuse me. Two original songs were included in Wim Wenders' 1993 sequel, from Wings of Desire, called Far Away So Close, and it included the title track. The soundtrack for Wenders' 1991 film Until the End of the World features another Cave original called I'll Love You Till the End of the World. Cave and the Bad Seeds later recorded a live in-studio cover track for Wenders' 2003 documentary The Soul of a Man. And his 2008 Palermo shooting film features two original songs from Cave's side project called Grinder Man. His song There Is a Light appeared in the 1995 soundtrack for Batman Forever. Okay, and Red Right Hand actually appeared in a number of films, including Dumb and Dumber, The X-Files, Scream, Scream 2 and 3, and Hellboy. Okay, and that was
Hellboy.
But it was actually in that movie. It was performed by Peter Yorn. That song. Okay,
he wrote a few films too. He's a screenplay.
Yeah, and he's right. I mean, and I'm as far as Red Right Hand. I mean, most recently it was in Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's a little bit like that. That song has changed. Like there's a little bit different versions of it and stuff. Okay, so over the years it's evolved a little bit. Even in go ahead.
What do you mean it evolved? Did they change the lyrics a lot, or
the little bit of the production of it, the sound has changed a little bit from the original version, and also like in Peaky Blinders. There's different people actually throughout the series that sing that song. Like PJ Harvey does it in the series. Iggy sings it in the series. Jarvis Cocker of the band Pulp, Patti Smith does a version of it in one of the seasons of the show. So, now in the 2019 interview with Cillian Murphy, who plays Thomas Shelby in Peaky Blinders, he mentioned that Nick Cave personally approved the use of the song for the series after watching a pre-screening of the show. So he was fully behind it. One thing we got to talk about with Nick is his collaborations, and there's quite a bit. Between 1980 and 2000, they like in the early years in the early 80s, 82 for instance, when he was still in the Birthday Party, and they were recording their third studio album called Junkyard. Cave, and together with bandmates Harvey and Howard, joined members of a band called the Go-Betweens to form Tough Monks. All right. It was a short-lived band that released only one single called After the Fireworks and only played live one time. All right. And Cave contributed to a concept album called Honeymoon in Red, and it intended as a collaboration between the Birthday Party and Lydia Lunch. That album was not released until 1988. Unfortunately, by that time, Lydia Lunch and Nick Cave had a falling out with each other. And she credits the release as anonymous. And she also called him a drunk cowboy junkie. Okay. So not too good. Well, I don't know what happened there, but it wasn't good.
A drunk cowboy junkie.
Yeah. Now, during the Birthday Party's period when they were living in West Berlin, Nick Cave collaborated with local post-punk and post-rock band Die Haupt on their studio album Burnin' the Ice, released in 1983. And in the aftermath of the Birthday Party's breakup, Cave performed several shows in the United States as part of the Immaculate Consumptive, a short-lived supergroup with Lydia Lunch, Mark Almond, and Clint Ruin. And Nick Cave sang on an Annie Hogan song called Vixo, which was recorded in October 1983, and that didn't come out to actually 1985.
Why did it take so long?
Probably couldn't get anybody to put it out or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Now he was a lifelong fan of Johnny Cash, Nick Cave. All right, and he covered his song "The Singer," originally called "The Folk Singer" when Johnny Cash did it, for the studio album called "Kicking Against the Pricks" in 1986, which Cash repaid by covering "The Mercy Seat," like I said before, on American 3's "Solitary Man" in 2000.
Yeah, that's a great album.
Right, "Kicking Against the Pricks" is a lyric. It's the name of the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds album that has "The Mercy Seat" on it, and "Kicking Against the Pricks" is a lyric of the song "The Mercy Seat." Okay, so subsequently, Nick Cave recorded a duet with Cash on a cover version of Hank Williams' "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry" for what would be Johnny Cash's final studio album, American 4. The Man Comes Around in 2002. Another duet between the two artists, the American folk song "Cindy," was released posthumously on Unearthed, a box set of outtakes of Johnny Cash. Cave's song "Let the Bells Ring," released on the studio album Abattoir Blues, the Lyra of Orpheus in 2004, is a posthumous tribute to Cash. That's an album that I've gotten into a lot recently by Nick Cave, Abattoir Blues. Everybody should check that out. There's some really good shit on there. Nick Cave, who was also a good friend of Shane MacGowan from the Poets, would cover versions with Shane of Bob Dylan's "Death Is Not the End," and also do a version of Louis Armstrong's "What a Wonderful World." They did a duet with each other on that. It's a cool video for that too.
Yeah.
Yep. And he also covered the Pogues' "Rainy Night in Soho," which was written by Shane.
Yeah.
And MacGowan sings a version of Nick Cave's "Lucy," released on B-Sides and Rarities in 2005. Cave provided guest vocals on the title track of Current 93's studio album "All the Pretty Little Horses" in 1996, as well as the closer Patripazian for his studio album "Murder Ballads" in 1996. Cave recorded "Where the Wild Roses Grow" with Kylie Minogue. That's an interesting combination.
That is an interesting.
Yeah. And he recorded Henry Lee with PJ Harvey, who he was involved with at one point. Cave also took part in the X-Files compilation CD with some other artists, where he reads parts of the Bible combined with his own lyrics. Okay. And he actually outed himself as a fan of the X-Files some years earlier, even though he admits he doesn't watch a lot of TV. He said he did.
Yeah.
He'd like that show. In 2004, Nick Cave gave a hand to Marianne Faithfull, all right, on her 16th studio album called "Before the Poison." He co-wrote and produced 3 songs: "Crazy Love," "There Is a Ghost," and "Desperanto." And the Bad Seeds, the whole band, is actually featured on all of them. He collaborated in 2003 with Chris Bailey from the Saints on a single called "Bring It On." And he also contributed vocals to the song "Sweet Roseanne" on the studio album "Catch That Train" in 2006 by Dan Zanes and Friends, which was actually like a children group. It was a children's music group.
He's like go over the place, this guy, man. He did all kind of stuff, man.
Yep. In 2010, he began a series of duets with Debbie Harry of Blondie. He also recorded a cover version of the Zombies' "She's Not There" with an artist named Nico Case. 2014, he wrote the libretto of an opera called "Shell Shock" by the Belgian composer Nicolas Lenz. The opera premiered at the Royal Opera House La Monnaie I'm probably saying that wrong, La Monnaie in Brussels in October of 2014. And also it was performed in Paris in November of 2018 as well. In 2004, Cave said, "I'm forever near a stereo saying, 'What the fuck is this garbage?' And the answer is always the Red Hot Chili Peppers." Okay. The line is widely quoted in discourse around the band. Their bassist Flea, who was a fan of Nick Cave, wrote that it had hurt him. In 2025, Cave wrote an apology on his website saying it was kind of an offhand and somewhat uncharitable remark with no malice meant, and announced that he had recently contributed to a record by Flea. I think he just walked that back a little bit. That's one band I just cannot stand anymore, man.
Mike, what do you think of the movie on 20,000 Days on Earth?
I'm not familiar with it.
It's a Nick Cave. He's excited about him.
Oh yeah, okay. I've never seen it. I've never
a documentary.
Yeah, I've never seen that. Yeah, I mean, let's see. In 2005, he wrote a screenplay for a film called The Proposition. In 2007, he and Warren Ellis composed the music for Andrew Dominik's adaptation of Ron Hansen's The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Yeah.
By the time Dominik's film was released, Hillcoat was preparing his next project, The Road. I mean, so much stuff going on here. He was involved in a Western film called Hell or High Water.
Yeah.
It was directed by David Mackenzie. And he also scored a few documentary films, including The English Surgeon, West of Memphis, Prophet's Prey, The Velvet Queen, and he did the music for the Icelandic theater group Vesterport productions of Warzek and the Metamorphosis and Faust. That's some heavy stuff right there.
He did a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? He's still going. It's like this guy never stopped working, man.
Nope. And, he wrote a book in 1988 called King Ink. And it's a collection of lyrics and some plays that he actually wrote with collaborations with Lydia Lunch. All right. This was followed up with King Ink #2 in 1997, composing of lyrics, poems, and even a transcript of a radio essay he wrote for the BBC in 1996 called The Flesh Made Word. And it was kind of like discussing his relationship with Christianity. Very interesting. While he was based in West Berlin, Cave started working on what was to become his debut novel, and that was called And the Ass Saw the Angel, which came out in 1989. Significant crossover is evident between the themes in the book and the lyrics Cave wrote in the late stages of The Birthday Party and the early stage of his solo career. Swampland from Mutiny, in particular, uses the same linguistic stylings. Kind of like he would write, like, instead of saying ma, he would say ma. Okay, yeah. Just like different ways of writing things. In 1993, Cave and Lydia Lunch published an adult comic book they wrote together with illustrations by Mike Matthews. I think I actually have that somewhere. I think I got that at St. Mark's Comics back then. On January 21st, 2008, a special edition of Cave's novel And the Ass Saw the Angel was released. Cave's second novel, The Death of Bunny Monroe, was published on September 8th, 2009, and that tells the story of a sex-addicted salesman. It was also released as an audiobook, and the book originally started as a screenplay Cave was going to write for John Hillcoat, but ended up becoming a novel. Okay. In 2015, he released the book The Sick Bag Song, followed in 2022 by Faith, Hope, and Carnage, collected from a series of phone conversations conducted between Cave and Irish writer Sean O'Hagan during the pandemic. Now, Cave's writing has also attracted significant academic interest. Edited collections such as what was called Cultural Seeds, essays on the work of Nick Cave, and The Art of Nick Cave, a new critical essay, cover his lyrics. Basically, that people are starting to study the way this guy writes, and they've written books about deciphering what he writes.
He did everything, man.
Yeah, I mean, now he also appeared as an actor, in Wim Wenders' 1987 film Wings of Desire, where you could see him in the Bad Seeds performing in Berlin. He's done some acting over the years, not too much. He appeared alongside Blixa Bargeld in the 1988 film called Dandy. He was playing dice in that movie and singing and speaking from his Berlin apartment. He is most prominently featured in the 1989 film Ghosts of the Civil Dead, which was written and directed by John Hillcoat, and in the 1991 film Johnny Suede. I forgot he's in that. Johnny Suede with Brad Pitt. Remember that film?
This guy's been all over the place, man.
Mm-hmm. Okay. He also did an homage in 2005 to one of his favorite artists, Leonard Cohen. It was called Leonard Cohen, I'm Your Man, and he performed I'm Your Man solo and Suzanne, another Cohen track with Julie Christensen and Perla Batala. He also appeared in the 2007 film adaptation of Ron Hansen's novel, The Assassination of Jesse James, by the coward Robert Ford, where he sings The Ballad of Jesse James. Okay. When it comes to screenwriting, okay, he wrote a screenplay called The Proposition, which I explained earlier. And he also, at the request of his friend Russell Crowe, the actor, Cave wrote a script for the proposed sequel to Gladiator, which they did make a sequel, but this particular script was rejected by the studio. Okay, unfortunately. Crowe tried to get him in on it. It didn't work out, I guess. One thing that he does, which is very cool for any artist to do, I think, is he blogs a lot. Okay, and he has a blogging page called the Red Hand Files. And he had one earlier called In Conversation.
Yeah.
And that kind of morphed into the Red Hand Files. And it's basically a series of live personal talks that he would do in front of audiences, where audiences would be allowed to just ask questions off the cuff. Okay. So, and he could talk about anything from art, religion, current affairs that are happening, music. Okay. And people were encouraged to just ask any kind of questions they want, even if it was a personal question. So in January of 2023, this is an interesting thing. Somebody sent him a song written by ChatGPT. And the person had said, make a song in the style of Nick Cave. Okay. And, write lyrics in the style of Nick Cave for a song. And he actually responded to this in a very negative way. I mean, he's very against this whole AI thing, it seems. He said that the act of the song writing is not mimicry or replication or pastiche. In other words, not just copying, it's the opposite. It's an act of self-murder that destroys all one has strived to produce in the past. He went on to say it's a blood and guts business that requires humanness to write a song, concluding that this ChatGPT song is bullshit, a grotesque mockery of what it is to be human. And well, he said, I don't much like it. So that's interesting, because really AI is taking over so much. You are finding AI written songs.
Yeah.
Some of them I've liked, actually. Okay, so I don't know where to go with all this, But if it starts to replace people, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, in 2010, Nick Cave was ranked the 19th greatest living lyricist in New Musical Express.
Wow.
Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers called him the greatest living songwriter in 2011. Rob O'Connor of Yahoo Music listed him the 23rd best lyric writer in rock history. It's just amazing how he's kind of like one of these guys. He's almost like a Tom Waits or even a Bob Dylan, where like musicians love him.
Yeah.
Songwriters love him. Leonard Cohen is like that as well. Was like that. He passed away. Now, a number of prominent noise rock vocalists have cited Nick Cave's birthday party era work as their primary influence. Okay. Bands like Scratch Acid and Jesus Lizard. Okay. They were very into the birthday party. And you could hear, like in Jesus Lizard in particular, you could hear that. Even stuff like the Jesus and Mary chain kind of took a little bit from what the birthday party was doing. They came out like around the same time. Getting into his personal life a little bit. I know you mentioned the film 20,000 Days on Earth,
Yeah,
which goes into his life. Okay, I've never seen this film. I really should see it.
I gotta check it out.
Yeah. I wonder if it's on YouTube or anything.
You can find it even on Tubi, which
Yeah, they have a lot of music documentaries on Tubi. That's true.
it's amazing.
I like Tubi. Yeah. Now, Cave left Australia in 1980, like we said earlier, and after stints of living in London, Berlin, and even Sao Paulo in Brazil, he moved to Brighton, England in the early 2000s. And the film 20,000 Days on Earth about Cave's life is set in that area, okay? Cave would leave Brighton after the death of his teenage son, Arthur, finding it too sad to live there, okay? But he realized that no matter where he lived, though, the sadness would always follow him. The lyrics of the song Heart That Kills You from the compilation album B-Sides and Rarities Part 2 talks about this, okay? And in 2021, he said that him and his wife were now living in London. Cave was actually a guest at the coronation of King Charles in 2023.
Oh, was he?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Okay. In 2023, the Archbishop interview, what was called In the Archbishop Interview with Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, which is the head of the Anglican Church, on BBC Radio 4. Cave spoke about being a heroin addict for 20 years. Although his life during that time was in a shambles, the first 10 years of it, he said the second decade of his addiction was actually much more stable and characterized by regularly taking heroin in the morning and in the evening and being able to work on writing during the day. On his blog, Cave discussed practicing transcendental meditation, saying that from the first time he meditated, he stopped fearing the end of the world. He's had different partners and he's had some children. Okay, with Anita Lane, he dated her from the late 70s to the mid 80s. Cave and Lane recorded together on a few occasions. Their most notable collaboration includes Lane's cameo verse on Nick Cave's Bob Dylan cover version of Death Is Not the End from the studio album Murder Ballads in 1996, and a cover of Serge Gainsbourg's and Jane Birkin's song Je t'aime, meaning I love you. Okay, that's a very interesting 60s cover, kind of like a Baroque type of thing. He co-wrote the lyrics to Lane actually co-wrote the lyrics to the title track for Nick Cave's studio album From Her to Eternity in 1984, as well as the lyrics of the song Stranger Than Kindness from Your Funeral, My Trial in 1986. Cave would then move to Brazil in 1990, where he met and married his first wife. He never married Anita Lane. Okay, Brazilian journalist Vivian Carneiro. She gave birth to their son Luke in 1991, and Cave and Carneiro were married for 6 years and divorced in 1996. Cave's son Jethro was also born in 1991, just 10 days before Luke was born, and grew up with his mother, Bo Lazenby, in Melbourne, Australia. Cave and Jethro never met until Jethro was about 7 or 8, and he would die at the age of 31 in May of 2022. Very sad. Cave briefly dated PJ Harvey, the English singer-songwriter in the mid-90s, with whom he recorded the duet Henry Lee, and their breakup influenced his studio album The Boatman's Call in 1997. Cave met English model Susie Bick, and they married in 1999. Their twin sons, Arthur and Earl, were born in London in 2000 and raised in Brighton. Bick is the model on the cover of Cave's studio album Push the Sky Away from 2013. When he was 15 years old, Cave's son, Arthur, fell from a cliff near Brighton and died from his injuries on July 14, 2015. An inquest found that Arthur had taken LSD before the fall, and coroner ruled his death as an accident. The effect of Arthur's death on Cave and his family was explored in the documentary film One More Time with Feeling, which came out in 2016, and the studio album called Ghost Teen, which came out in 2019. Cave is the godfather to Michael Hutchinson's, from INXS, daughter Tiger Hutchinson's Geldof. He performed Into My Arms at the televised funeral of Hutchins, but insisted that the cameras cease rolling during his performance. So it was never actually filmed. In his personal life, he's an avid reader of the Bible, okay? And he's recorded lectures on music and songwriting, how the Bible influences him. He's interested in other religions outside Christianity, but always seems to, come back to Christianity as a major influence. Over the last, like, I don't know, maybe
he's like super religious in a weird way.
I wouldn't say he's super religious. I think he's grounded in his Christianity. I don't, but I don't think he's not one of these guys that pushes it on people or anything like that.
Okay.
He just uses it as, I guess, a moral compass for himself now that he's clean and whatever. But he's characterized himself really as not always being a Christian, but trying to act like one. So whatever that means. Okay. And his politics in recent years has kind of raised some eyebrows for a lot of people in the music business. Okay. He, in 2019, there was a point where I think Morrissey from the Smiths was getting some, flack about his political beliefs and things like that. And Nick Cave kind of stood up for him. And he says that he has a disdain for atheism. He doesn't like atheism, but he also doesn't like organized religion as well. Okay. He doesn't like woke culture.
No.
Okay, at all. And he's described on his Red Hand Files blog. He described that woke politics, it's kind of like lacks of humility and it's a doctrinal sureness of it that repels him. I think basically thinking that people can just kind of like force their beliefs on somebody else like that, cancel culture and misguided political correctness. He's just not interested in any of that. He's a supporter of free speech. Okay. And in his previous blog called In Conversation, he discussed how boycotting musicians or artists based on their political positions was stupid, basically. Okay. It doesn't go anywhere. All right. And in October of 2022, he expressed support for the participants of the Mahsa Amini protests in Iran, okay, which was kind of the people rising up against the Iranian regime. He was in support of it. Okay, he's also supports trans people. Okay, he wants them to have dignity and rights and all that. Okay, without any prejudice. He's also been accused of being right wing. Okay, which he kind of rejects. He does call himself conservative with a small c, whatever that means. I guess he doesn't push it on people. Okay, and he's basically says, everything in this world is like systemically fucked. Okay, as far as systems. Okay, I mean, he's one of these guys. I think just he goes to his own drum. You know what I mean? One thing that he's in recent years, in the last like 7-8 years, he's been criticized for was he plays, he plays in Israel, okay, and there's a lot of musicians that are against Israel, particularly Brian Eno from Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, and they've actually, and they've been involved in big boycotts of Israel, and Nick Cave just doesn't want anything to do with that. He just says, it's just not for his thing. He believes that the boycott, divest movement with and putting sanctions on Israel isn't effective and just doesn't want any part of it. So there we go. I mean, this is a guy that, he's been around making music for close to 50 years. I mean, we're getting to that point, 45 years.
But he got his fingers on everything. He got his fingers on.
I think he's a true
music.
Yeah. He's He's what you would call a Renaissance man. Okay,
Yeah, Renaissance mentors, man.
he's got a little bit everything from poetry to writing to music to film to politics. He puts his hand in that too, talking about it.
Everything, man. He worked with some of the best, singers and songwriters through the years, man. That's like a who's who of people he worked with.
Exactly. Next time he comes around, I think I'm going to go see him. I hope he does. He just turned, I believe, I think he just turned 68 by the time this show is out. So hopefully he's still around. One thing to mention too, we mentioned his friendship with Shane MacGowan. He was at the funeral for Shane MacGowan. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He played Rainy Night in Soho in the church at the funeral.
It's really impressive, man.
I was in that church on my trip to Ireland back in August. I went into that church. Yeah, I saw where that whole thing was. Beautiful old church.
Do you see the statue of Shane that they had up there?
There's no statue. There's a mural.
Oh, a mural? I thought they had like a...
No, there's two murals. There's two murals when I was there, and a third one in a town nearby just came up. So there's a lot of props to Shane going on around there.
Oh, nice.
But that was very cool. But Nick Cave showed up at the funeral and he played, and it was just very touching, to hear him do that song there at the funeral with Shane's body right there in state. So, all right, Rob. So that's Nick Cave.
Nick Cave. Wow. What?
I tried not to make it a 2-hour show.
Yeah, you can easily make it 2 hours, but there's only so much talking.
I wasn't going to go into the 18 Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds records. I mean,
my God, yeah.
I hope that everybody checks it out. I think he's a very interesting guy, and if you're just kind of on the fence with him, give it a chance. I was on the fence for a long time, but I've really got into his music.
You listen to his music; it's special after a while. It's just really good stuff that he puts out there, and his lyrics are like nobody else. Like he goes into a journey, man.
Right.
But I can see how they were dark and stuff. But he's heroin for most of his career.
Exactly. Well, I mean, he's written dark music because he's led a dark life.
Yeah.
Sadly, but even with that, he has a way of reaching out to people and affecting them. I mean, he has a very big cult following, very big following.
Oh yeah, very cult following. And again, there's a bunch of movies you can listen to and TV show you see, and they got Nick Cave in there.
I think he's become way more well respected, maybe in the last 15 years or so than ever. Maybe it's just the generation coming up that listen to him.
Yeah,
and they're kind of like writing TV shows and movies, and they want to include his music. I think that's all great because look for how many years they use the same freaking music and shit and everything. You need a change.
Yeah, and it's good. And he's probably getting some nice money back for doing that. It's not you had to pay for the music.
I like it. I was always, for many years, I was against, certain music being in films and commercials, not films, but commercials. Now I'm just happy because there's a lot of people that are getting their due. I mean, you hear like Iggy Pop songs and old Iggy Pop songs in car commercials now.
Yeah.
And I don't think Iggy's a sellout. It's like, shit, he didn't make nothing the first time around. He deserves it.
I think they do it to make up some money, man. You can't hate them, It's like, look what... Dude, these people became even more popular after that Guitar Hero came out, and kids was into this song that nobody. And you're like, how do you know this song? Oh, it's in Guitar Hero.
Right. I don't know if Nick Cave's music is in any video games. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but I mean, I've had conversations with kids, and they're like, "Oh, I know that song. That's in Guitar Hero." I'm like, "Oh shit!" They're not listening to the radio, but they know it's not. It's not Guitar Hero. All right, Rob. So that was Nick Cave. Hope everybody liked that. And next month, we have a very interesting rock show. We're going to be talking about not rockabilly, psychobilly, okay, which is kind of like a little subset of rockabilly music. We're going to talk about 3 classic acts: Hazel Atkins, the legendary Stardust Cowboy, and a band from England called the Meteors. Should be an interesting show. They're kind of mysterious. I'll try to give a little information about them, and we'll talk about that next time around.
That sounds good, man. Sounds interesting, and we'll see how that go. And that'll be episode 220.
220, yeah.
220. Wow.
All right, Rob. So where do we find you online?
You can find me on Facebook, X, Instagram, and any of those handles. So just look up Getting Lumped Up, and we'll pop right up. Pretty much the first thing that pops up.
Anybody looking for me, you could find me on Facebook. You could find me on Instagram, Twitter, X. I am on something called MeWe. I am on. Guess what? I don't know if I mentioned this. In case anybody wants to listen to our show, we're on Amazon Prime now.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
The audio version of our shows is now on Amazon Prime. So your Prime
membership gets you that.
Yeah, subscription gets us too.
Yeah, because we're also on audio, that other thing, the audio whatever that people listen to. We're a bunch of there's a bunch of people that picked us up, and it's funny.
I mean, we've been on Spotify, we've been on Pandora, Stitcher, iTunes, but there's a few others out there that are coming up that picked us up. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think we're also on Google Podcasts.
Google, really? Okay.
Yeah, we don't know that stuff. You'd be surprised. There's sometimes I just look around and I'm like, we're on other platform that have no idea who these people are. It's like.
Hey, listen, as long as it gets out there and they watch, that's good.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that's when we get like all those crazy ratings sometimes in Australia and all those places.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And, it's even though if you're watching here on YouTube or wherever you're watching this, we're actually, our meat and potatoes is the audio stuff. I guess we just got faces made for radio, so that's fine. But I don't mind it. YouTube is fucked up. They shadow ban people, and the audio stuff is the audio only is where we're doing very well, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
It makes it all worth it, and we couldn't have done it without the fans. So thank you to everybody listening and watching.
A big thank you, and next month we're coming with episode 20. Hopefully you listen to that. Then we'll come with soon it'll be the end of the year awards.
Right. That'll be the November show, and then we'll be doing another end of the year. That'll be the end of our 6th year.
Wow, I can't believe that. 6 years.
And once again, we're gonna ask Clown to come back, and he's gonna do his thing.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
We got to put a ban on Sean Harris. He gets way too.
Sean, if you're listening, we love you, but you got to learn how to shut up sometimes.
And what do we always say? We don't get drunk.
We get lumped up.
See you later.
Take care, people.